as you mentioned, and we kind of mentioned, this is one of the best cards that I've seen from top to bottom, bro, in a long time, bro. Before we even start, man, real quick, like, what's your thoughts on the actual card? Like, is this from your history of watching boxing? Is this what is this? Does this would this make your top 10? Obviously, we
Best
got to see how
ever.
the fight.
Obviously, best ever. Yeah, best ever.
Okay.
Yeah, like, Saudi's able to do something that, because boxing is a business, and apparently to them, they have an unlimited cash flow. So, it may not be a bit. I don't know what their end game is, but they're putting up a ridiculous amount of money where fighters can't say no, and we're getting fights that we never thought would maybe be possible. So this is just, each one would be a main event on their own.
Yeah, yeah. Well, man, let's get started, man. For those who have been rocking with the channel, you've seen TJ a bunch of times already. For those who have not, we are going to be talking about the full breakdown. It seems like every time TJ comes on, we talk about the full card. And with the schedule of me and you, obviously, I haven't been putting out as much content of boxing as I'd like to, as I was before. But there's some personal things. Now, I'm not going to get into that for everybody. But today, man, we're going to be talking about this card that's happening this Saturday. And if you are someone who loves boxing, enjoys boxing, even if you're a casual person into boxing, this is the card that you want to be on. So let's start from the bottom, man. Let's talk about the Big Bang Zhilei Zhang versus Agit Kabayel. Obviously, 12 rounds in the heavyweight division. Big Bang, 27 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw, 22 wins by way of knockout. I'm always interested to see how much he's going to come in each fight as he weighs. We just never know with the Big Bang. Sometimes he thinks bigger is better. We'll see. Kabayel, 25 wins, no losses, 17 wins by knockout. Obviously, Kabayel has had 2 of the best fights of his life, coming off of a big win against Frank Sanchez, where he made Frank Sanchez look very average, or Kabayel looked better than we thought. I think it's a mix of, it could be a mix of both. I've never seen Frank Sanchez look that bad, but maybe it was an off night for him and a stellar night for Kabayel. But what are your thoughts on this fight, man? Obviously, Kabayel has never lost before, so that's always an edge and always an added motivation to not lose. But he's up against a big, big, big man in Zhilei Zhang, man. What are your thoughts on this one right here?
He's probably one of the greatest beneficiaries of this Saudi season of boxing, right? Because nobody really knew who he was. He had one very good win years ago against Derek Chisora, and he's really been on the radar. And he came in, and now he's getting chance after chance as the underdog. He opened as the underdog. He is now the favorite, though, but this is really a 50-50 fight with Zhang. I mean, it's this out of all the cards, probably for me is the most intriguing. Because I'm really interested to see how good is Agit, right? We know about Zhang. Zhang's been in some big fights already. But the questions with Zhang, I think a lot of people have, are his gas tank, the size that he's coming in, 300 pounds. He has moments where he lacks activity. I think that cost him the Joseph Parker fight. As much as everybody raves about Joseph Parker's performance, and we'll talk about him later, I think if Zhang threw maybe 3 or 5 more punches around, he could have possibly won that fight. Yeah, like just off activity, he could have stole some of those rounds and we would have been having a different winner, right? So gassing is always a problem, especially in the Hrgovic fight. I thought he was gassing in that. In others. So you have now a heavyweight in Agit Kabayel that really has a phenomenal gas tank. He's going to be pushing Zhang. And something that a lot of heavyweights don't do, that Agit Kabayel does, if I'm saying his name right or wrong, so apologize. He goes to the body. You do not see a lot of heavyweights work the body. And I think somebody the size of Zhang, this could really, influence the trajectory of the fight, that body work. So, for me, I like Agit in this fight. I think that the momentum is going sky high. I think we've seen the best of Zhang. Obviously, he's dangerous, but he's been taking the distance before. Not only Hrgovic and Parker, he had a very close fight with Jerry Forrest back in the day. A lot of people don't talk about that fight. Hrgovic fight could have won either way. But for me, I like Kabayel. I really am curious to see how good he is. So It's tough for me to decide, the actual method, but I think somehow, some way, he's gonna get it done for Zhang. What are you thinking?
Man, I remember when we were talking about Kabayel versus Frank Sanchez, and I think Frank Sanchez was the favorite by quite a bit, right? Because he's more known, he's fought better opposition, the Cuban Flash, all these different things. And I remember we were talking, I was just like, I don't know, man, I'm actually gonna go with Kabayel here, and he ended up winning the fight.
Dominating.
Yeah,
Dominating the fight. Wasn't a close victory. He dominated every round, which has never been done against Sanchez.
And just as you mentioned, it was hurt him to the body. Kabayel, man. Now I'm not drawing it from a full, complete comparison, but I hope that everybody watching can kind of understand, and maybe you can see it as well too. He kind of reminds me of a more powerful but slower Joe Parker in a way. Like a little bit more aggressive, right? He's going to come forward. He's moving his head a little bit and he's hitting and he's going to the body. He's coming over the head. He's not as smooth, as efficient as Joe Parker, but I see some similarities. Now, how's he going to take Bing Bang shot, right? Like, we don't know how great or how good his chin is. We know he can take a shot. But, Zhang is one of those guys where we've talked about him many times before. Zhang is dangerous under 6 rounds. If you can survive his shots and his power and his frame in under 6 rounds, there's a good chance if you can take him 7, 8, 9 and those championship rounds, he's going to gas out. In boxing and in life, I watch the history of a person to tell me the truth. We've seen the history of Zhang, but he's dangerous in 6 rounds. So it's going to be interesting to see how Kabayel handles just the sheer size of Zhang. He was pushing Frank Sanchez back as if Frank Sanchez was like a lightweight. I'm like, what's going on here? Come on,
and
Frank.
The fight before that with Madrimov, who was the dark horse, the bully.
Yes. Oh,
he really bullied the bully. He,
both times.
Very impressive. Yeah.
So, how's he going to handle this version of a southpaw? The size? Can he be as aggressive? Are we going to see a boxing version of Kabayel? We haven't really seen that type of style, fighting off the back foot a little bit more, man. I think it's a 50-50 fight, bro. And I think you can't go either way with whom you are going to pick. Obviously, if you're betting, you're going to go with whatever makes the most sense. But, man, Zhang, 40 years old. I'm actually going to go with you with this one, man. I like Kabayel, man. He hasn't stared me wrong since. And I just think it's simply because we've seen a big enough portion size of Zhang. If he cannot dominate or take out Kabayel in 6 rounds, 7 rounds, I think Kabayel's body work, consistency in his shots, and his just sheer aggressiveness is going to be enough to at least tire Zhang out to make him vulnerable to getting hit. Because when Zhang fought Parker, it's like he stopped throwing punches in those last couple of rounds. You go from throwing, 25, 30 punches per round to, I think there was one round where he threw like 4. Like
he had some real lack of activity, which cost him the fight. He would just watch his work. He'd get the knockdown, not jump on Parker, and then just give the rest of the round away.
I think Zhang is going to focus too much on the power and the one-shot knockout, as he did with Deontay Wilder, rather than being consistent with his work and being strategic with it. I think Zhang's going to depend on his size and power, where I think Kabayel, if he can take those shots, will be able to outwork Zhang. And I think he could continue this winning streak, man. And if he wins this fight, it puts himself in an even bigger category of, this guy possibly deserves a title shot down the road. Now, will he get it? Obviously, we'll see. But very intriguing fight, man. I'm looking forward to seeing how it unfolds. We're obviously not going to be on the same page on all of these cards, but, we started out this way.
This is a good start. Yeah, just so people know, we haven't talked about these fights either.
No.
This is all the an organic reaction from us on our picks. But I like Agit, and I think that he could win either by stoppage, or he could outwork Zhang. So I think it could be I think he could outwork him to points because Zhang is tough, or I think he could stop him late, to the body, or he could just put a hurt him. But I like Agit to win.
I think he goes the distance, man. I think Kabayel outworks him, and he finds a way to win, whether it's split decision, unanimous decision, whatever the case. I think he finds a way to win. But let's keep things going, man. Let's go up to another interesting card, man. Joshua Buatsi versus Callum Smith, 12 rounds, 175-pound division. Buatsi, 19 wins. Another guy who has not lost before, but has had some performances where kind of lukewarm. But 13 wins by way of knockout. Obviously, Smith, former champ, 2 losses, 22 wins by way of knockout. He's fought the tougher competition. Obviously, when you fight Canelo Alvarez and you fight Artur Beterbiev, that's the top of the tops. So you would have to think Callum Smith coming into this one. I don't know, maybe he's the favorite. You can tell me a little bit more. But from an experience standpoint, you would think Callum Smith should know how to handle Buatsi. But Buatsi, I think, has a tendency sometimes to kind of show up on big fights, man. He was in a tough fight in his last fight. Callum Smith, not so much. That could play into it. But when you think about this fight, man, how do you think this one goes? What comes to mind?
So what comes to mind is Callum Smith. And for a lot of UK listeners, this may be an unpopular opinion, but I've always thought Callum Smith was a little overrated. And you say, well, what does that mean? What's overrated? Well, before he was going to fight Beterbiev, there was certain people on the ring panel. There were certain people. A lot of UK writers were all picking Callum Smith for the upset over Beterbiev, and I never saw it. So this is where, I mean, you're lucky if you gave him a round, right? So I've also heard, well, he's had 2 losses and they were to all-time greats. Yes, we know this, Canelo, Beterbiev, but what were his wins? Okay, what were his wins? Yes, he beat John Ryder. In my opinion, he didn't. That was a very close fight that I thought John Ryder should have got the nod. And how good is John Ryder here? But not to take, Callum Smith was a former world champion. I thought he was massive at 168. This isn't 168 anymore. That's where most of his body of work has been, right? At super middleweight. He is now at 175, and he's still massive at 175. So going into this now, if I'm thinking he's a little overrated, how about Joshua Buatsi? Joshua Buatsi, though, to me, he's 31. He's undefeated, but he's been a pro for a long time, and he doesn't really have that many notable wins either. The last couple of years, he stepped it up, but he does show some vulnerabilities. So I'm looking at this fight, and I'm thinking, one, somebody I would never pick to win would be somebody that contemplated retirement or said they were retired or thinking about retirement. And I think Callum Smith had spoken those words or kind of suggested after the Beterbiev fight that he was done. Mm-hmm. So I don't know where your mind is at. Why are you coming back if that is the case? And then as far as skill set wise, I think Buatsi may be the all-around more skilled fighter. I think Callum Smith may have more power. And I think Buatsi can win this. I'm going to pick Buatsi to win this. And I don't know how. I think he could hurt Callum. I think he could win a points decision. The thing with Buatsi is he does like to scrap, but he can also box. I thought Willie Hutchinson was able to wobble him a few times. He has been wobbled in previous fights. And Callum Smith has that, no matter what, even if he's down, if he can let his hands go, he might be able to hurt Buatsi. The thing I just don't trust is that he didn't let his hands go with Canelo. He didn't let his hands go with Beterbiev. If he shells up, shells up. I don't know if he'll have that shell up syndrome with Joshua Buatsi. He's not as much of an intimidating figure. He doesn't have the skill set as those two that I named. But it's a tough reach for me to pick Callum Smith other than, he just gets that left hook and catches him perfectly. Because I think it's going to be, if he catches him, it's going to be in a fight that he may be down on the cards on. But all around, I think Buatsi has got more past the victory here. So I'm edging it to Joshua Buatsi. I also think he has the momentum going into this.
Man, I still can't get the fight of Callum Smith when I think of his name and him and his fight with Canelo. Because all press conference and interviews, I'm the bigger man. Canelo's not going to be able to do what he's done to others to me. I'm going to show this guy, I'm going to back him up. And I didn't see it not one single round. And I was waiting for him to press on the gear and to show what you've been talking about. And he just let Canelo punch him up every single round.
Akeem, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Edgar Berlanga put up a better fight.
Yes.
than Callum.
Yes.
Edgar Berlanga. But
I
go ahead.
didn't,
Yeah,
I didn't like the fact that he just let the smaller man punch him up every single round. And I thought Canelo had a great game plan. Canelo punched anything, like punched the arms. I mean, you saw the bicep, what it looked like.
yeah,
He punched.
arms, hips,
It,
shoulders, yeah,
it was a
elbows.
great
Didn't
game
matter.
plan. And Beterbiev did the same thing. It just hurt more. It was bigger. And if it's one thing about Joshua Buatsi that I've liked, I'm probably a little higher on Joshua Buatsi than you are because I like the grit of him. Like, this is a guy who is not gonna quit, man. Like, when he fought Willie and when he fought Spider, Craig Richards, there were some rounds where I'm just like, even against Willie's not a big puncher like that. But there were some rounds where I was just like, oh man, don't tell me Buatsi's gonna go down because he got clipped.
Yeah.
Legs wobbling, backing up, legs crossing. I'm just like, oh man, not my guys going down like this. But I think in boxing, man, obviously you have to have skill. You either have to have power, you have the skill, the technique. But there's another level of boxing that I think you have to have. You got to have that grit and that toughness and that willingness to stay on your feet. And I think Buatsi has that. So where he lacks in certain defensive skills, I think he has that. And I think for me, that is the thing that I think is going to help him in this fight. You mentioned Callum Smith talking about retirement, man. When you get punched up like you did against Canelo, against Beterbiev, and you're coming up to a bigger division and you're still a bigger guy, but you got beat up by a smaller guy, I don't like that. If Buatsi comes in and lets his hands go and starts ripping to the body like he did against Hutchinson to get those knockdowns, I think it could be a problem. I don't know how much toughness and grit and where Callum Smith is going to go if the fight is going to go to where it goes. You know what I'm saying? Like if it's cut over the eye, blood gushing, I think Buatsi's willing to go there and will push through. Now, does he stop him? Now, I don't know, but I think he's going to get the win. So I like Buatsi in this one by decision. I think Callum Smith's fought the better opposition. I think Joshua Buatsi, I think he's a little bit hungrier right now. And sometimes the hunger and the grit can outdo the skill, in my opinion. So
great way to put it. I say that all the time. There's certain fights where will overcomes skill. We see it every weekend. Well, and you're right. I think the momentum, and Joshua Buatsi hasn't been to the levels that Callum has, and I think he wants to be there. He's undefeated. He doesn't know how to lose. And there's been times, like you said, he could have went down and he didn't. And that's not learned. It's either you have it or you don't. So this is his big moment. Callum's had his.
Let's see what Buatsi can do, man. Let's keep pushing, man. Another card that I'm very interested in this matchup, man. I think is 50-50, but I'm kind of leaning like 60-40 here now that I think about it, just a little bit more. Talking about Carlos Adames versus Hamzah Sheeraz, 12 rounds, right? 160 pound, probably the most questionable division, probably the most open division, I would say. Adames, 24 wins, 1 loss, 18 wins by knockout. Sheeraz, 21 wins, 0 losses, 17 wins by knockout. Sheeraz, he put a beating on Tyler Denny last fight. Adames got a unanimous decision victory over Tyrell Gausha. What do you think about this fight, man? And I want to ask you, man, this is my personal opinion. Everybody's been telling me about Hamzah Sheeraz for years. And it hasn't been till recently that I say, okay, yeah, this guy's pretty good. But I was not as high on him as everybody else was. I was like, let's wait and see. And I'm still in that mindset of just like, let's wait and see. But what do you think about this fight, man?
Agreed. A few years ago, there was some questionable, shaky performances, specifically the Bradley Skeet. I somewhat give him a pass for that for 2 reasons. One, he was 22. He's now, I believe, 25, but it was at 154. The kid is massive at 160. He should be, he has the frame of almost a Diego Pacheco at 168. The kid is massive, but he was down at 154. He was still green. Okay. As soon as this fight was made, I love this fight. I've been following Carlos Adames for a long time. Well, I just follow boxing, so I know I watch a lot of his fights.
You a historian, man.
Yeah, I don't actually follow Carlos, but I know all his fights. And I got to tell you, there's something about Carlos Adames where I feel like he gets lazy at certain times. He drops rounds, specifically the Sergey Derevchenko fight.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was lucky. It was only a 10-rounder because after round 6, he really faded, and Derevchenko kind of swept the back half of that fight. The momentum was crazy. He was really starting to touch up Carlos Adames. If it was 12 rounds, not only do I not think he wins, he might have been stopped. And Carlos Adames also has a loss at 154. I mean, he was big at 154 against Patrick Teixeira. So, I mean, I don't know. This is a style where Hamzah Sheeraz is very tall. He's got one of the best jabs in boxing, a great right hand. And I'm thinking Carlos Adames across from him, and Carlos Adames had a problem with the jab from J-Rock, and he had a problem with the straight right hand. Even though he ended up stopping him, don't forget, J-Rock's really a 154-pounder. He was coming up. In his last fight against Terrell Couchet, the scorecards were extremely wide. It almost was a shutout for Carlos Adames. That fight was not a shutout. That fight going into the 12th round, I thought was almost 6-6 either way. And Terrell was able to outbox him. And it was a lot of Carlos Adames just not throwing enough. He only fights in bursts. So like I said, I see Sheeraz across from him. And the Ammo Williams fight impressed me so much. He was able to maintain the action, center of the ring, push Ammo back. Even when he got clipped, I thought he showed a good chin, unlike the Bradley. I thought he was very well composed. He was more mature. You know, I'm pretty confident in this. I know it's a 50-50 fight. I know a lot of people are picking Carlos Adames, but I think this could potentially be one-sided. I think Sheeraz really might show out in this fight stylistically. I think this might be his moment. So that's where I am. You know, Carlos Adames really hasn't impressed me in his last few fights. I think you're only as good as your last performance. And the two, you know, when you're comparing their last few fights against each other, I mean, the momentum is clearly swinging in somebody's favor.
Mm-hmm. Man, you know, it's funny as you were talking. I was like, man, I thought you were gonna go with Adames on that one, man.
Switched it up.
Man, I'm going with Sheeraz off jump. Like, and this is why. I thought Ammo Williams was going to break him. I really thought Ammo was going to break him. Matter of fact, I picked Ammo Williams to beat him. I really thought he was not going to be able to handle everything that Ammo Williams possesses. Yeah, the power, but Ammo is kind of half crazy, bro, in a good way. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not going to stop coming. And I'm watching this fight, and yeah, he got clipped a couple times, but I'm watching this fight. You know, there are people when they get clipped and their legs are shaky and their first immediate reaction is to, oh man, I got to go back and I got to get him back. I got to go right now. And you put yourself in danger and you ended up probably ending up on the canvas, but he never panicked. You know what I'm saying? Like, he stayed composed. He went to his jab. I was really impressed with his jab. I was really impressed with his power. So it's going to be interesting for me, for Carlos Adames, man, to see how does he handle someone who I think Sheeraz is bigger than him, right? And if you can't hurt him, I don't necessarily know how great Sheeraz's chin is. We're going to find that out. But at least I know that Sheeraz is not going to abandon the jab, right? And even if you don't hit a lot of heavy, big punches, if you can soften him up with the jab and give him something to think about, those bigger shots are going to come out. And 12-round fight, I've seen fights, as you mentioned, too, of Carlos Adames going into certain rounds where I'm just like, yo, it's like he knows he's going to win, or he thinks he's going to win, and he just coasts, right? He just steps off the gas, and yeah, he looks pretty. I'm saying, looks pretty on the back foot, and he's moving, but it's just like, yo, you don't know what these judges are seeing. It might be closer than you think, right? You just don't know. I think Sheeraz is going to be more on the front foot. I think Adames is going to depend more on his full work. And it's going to be interesting to see, man. But I like Sheeraz in this fight, man. And I like him because, again, going back to the Ammo Williams fight, I like how he responded, right? I think there's a big difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is all emotion. But when you respond, you move with a sense of maturity that I'm going to get my shot, right? I'm going to stay composed, and I'm going to make sure that when that opportunity comes, I'm going to get it, man. So I think Sheeraz is still getting better. I don't know about Ammo. I mean, I don't know about Carlos Adames, man.
He's definitely peaked. We've seen the best. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I don't think we've seen the best of Sheeraz. I
So,
still think has yet to peak. That's a very good way to put it.
and I want to see what he's been working on in the gym, man. I've been seeing some videotapes and video clips. He's working on some uppercuts, and I want to see it. I want to see it. And I want to see how he does when his back's against the wall. Obviously, we saw with Bradley Skeet, and that's a very questionable fight. We could break that one down and talk about him possibly even lost that fight, but it is what it is, But I like Sheeraz in this fight, man. And if Adames is going to win this fight, he's got to let his hands go and be imposing from the start. If he's too much on the back foot, Sheeraz is going to pick him apart with that jab, and it might be lights out. But I like Sheeraz in this fight as well, too, man.
Agreed. We're 3 for 3 right now.
Yeah. I think things are going to switch up in the next couple fights here, man. Let's keep things going. Obviously, I just briefly saw this morning. Floyd Schofield is not fighting. Mm-hmm. I don't know why he pulled out. Sickness, illness. I don't know him well enough to say anything, so I'm going to leave that alone. Do you know who Shakur is fighting? I can't remember his name. It's like Patty something.
Yeah, Josh Patty. He had a big upset on a Saudi card against Mark Chamberlain. But
okay, yeah. I remember him now.
He's a domestic level fighter that very much overperformed against Mark Chamberlain, and he's going against a pound for pound, in my opinion, pound for pound. You know what? Not my opinion. He's pound for pound. Shakur's a pound for pound fighter. That's it. And you got 3 days to find a lightweight that's in shape that can make I'm just glad that, Shakur needed a fight. I'm glad he's fighting. So, and if anyone deserved it, it should be somebody that earned it off a big upset that worked for it, like Josh.
Yeah. So hard not to think Shakur's not going to get it done, man. I don't think there's much we need to discuss on this one.
No, but we talked about it. There you go.
Yeah. So let's keep things pushing, man. This is number 5, right? We're talking Vergil, Ortiz, and Israel Madrimov, 12 rounds, 154. Ortiz, 22 wins, 21 wins by way of knockout. He's possibly coming off his biggest win when he fought Sergey Boachuk in a very close, exciting fight. Madrimov, 10 wins. Not a lot of fights, but a lot of amateur fights, but really good guy, really skilled. Obviously, he's coming off his first loss, and it's not a bad loss when you lose to Terrence Bud Crawford. But what do you think about this fight, man? I think this fight could go either way, bro. What do you think?
Yeah, this is the fight I'm most anticipating because of that. The clash of styles, where they're both at in their careers. I mean, you got Madrimov that lost a razor thin fight against Bud Crawford, who's top 1, 2, 3 pound for, like, Bud is not elite. He's special. He's a generational, right? So there's no shame in being competitive with Bud. So how good is Madrimov? Is he the best then at 154 after Bud? We don't know. And then how good is Vergil? Because Virgil's only had a handful of fights coming up to 154, and Sergey Boachuk is a monster. He's not, like, to have a close fight with Boachuk. I mean, it's just,
man. Sorry to interrupt, bro. Where do you put Madrimov and Boachuk, like, on a scale? Would you say that they're...
they were both supposed to fight a few... Yeah, right? I tell you what, I thought that was going to be another... That's a close fight. I don't know where I would put them. I mean, the body of work would probably be maybe Madrimov, but I tell you what, Sergey Boachuk, he came out and completely... Ishmael Davies completely blew out Ishmael. I mean, Sergey Boachuk's such a problem to deal with. He's like a stylistic nightmare, just like Vergil. So it's tough. I would really have to see them fight because I guess you're going to see, like, Vergil has a similar style in many ways to Sergey Boachuk, where he wants to be on your chest and he's going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at you. And Madrimov is very tricky. I mean, skill for skill, Madrimov all day. Over Vergil. All day, skill for skill. But let me tell you something. I said skill for skill. David Morrell all day over David Benavidez. But I did not pick David Morrell to win that fight. So sometimes when you have 12 rounds, the skill will only get you so far because pressure is a real thing. They say pressure breaks pipes. And I think if Vergil, he has obviously an aggressive style, he gets hit. But when you're throwing as many punches as he throws around, you're going to get caught in between shots. Sure. But that's his style. He's okay with that because he believes in his chin and he believes in his power. So that's his effective way of winning. He fights behind that high guard, goes to the body, goes up top, makes you drop your hands, thinking you're going to get hit to the body. He has good footwork, good angles. He's still growing into 154, even though Madrimov's probably the stockier, more natural 154. I mean, there's just so many question marks around this fight. But I could talk about this fight for a long time, so I'll get right to the point. I think Vergil will. I mean, this is going to be about who's going to want to implement their style. And is Vergil going to be cautious? Is he going to be getting clipped with counters? And then, maybe he'll go into a boxing retreat. But I think Vergil's style is just go, go, go. And I think he's going to either eke out a points decision or he could hurt Madrimov late. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Vergil Ortiz. I mean, I've been going back and forth with this one. So there's a bunch of different ways but the style of Vergil Ortiz is very, very tough to overcome. You're going to have to hurt somebody like that unless you can just put on a boxing clinic, and that's a rarity. I think there's more likely you're going to be dragged into a dog fight and an inside fight, and if that happens in an inside fight, I'm going to take the inside fighter. I'm sure Madrimov can inside fight too, but that's Vergil's game. Now you're in his game. Now you're playing his game and not yours. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Who do you think hits harder, Boachuk or Madrimov?
One punch, probably Madrimov. The thing Boachuk gets you not with the one punch, it's the second and third one coming back. Yeah, but that's not Madrimov's game. It's such a stylistic different. And don't forget, Bud fights nothing like Vergil either. Yeah. And Bud is also small at 154. Let me tell you, that's Bud's limit. That's a whole different conversation. But 154, he was very small compared to Madrimov. And that was more of a chess match. I don't see this being a chess match. No. This could very much turn into a firefight, which I'm anticipating. Yeah.
And if it turns into a firefight, like everybody watching, take your unbiased away and just look at the history. If it turns into a firefight, you would have to think it would favor Vergil Ortiz, right? Because Ortiz, he just throws punches, bro. Like my
concern, he gets caught. Like at 147, he got caught by Mean Machine. He got caught by Maurice Hooker. Yep. But he doesn't care. Like like I said, people like that, they believe in their chin. That's cool. You can catch me because I'm eventually gonna catch you. So I'm okay with it. That's how their mentality is. Like he was fine with Boachuk. That's his game. Mm-hmm. So he'll just keep. He believes in himself so much. He'll just keep going. Eventually, I'm gonna wear you down, and that's tough. That's tough to overcome, not just physically but mentally. Like you're boxing a perfect game, and this guy ain't letting up. Now it's the 8th round, the 9th round, the 10th round. It's like, well, where are we going here? Yeah,
man. Vergil Ortiz against Boachuk for the first couple of rounds came out and tried to show us what he was working on in the gym, fighting on the outside and kind of boxing a little bit. And it kind of reminded me of a couple fights back when we saw his name is slipping me now. He just lost to Stephen Fulton.
Brandon Figueroa.
Yeah. So Brandon Figueroa, remember a couple fights back when he moved up, man, he was boxing. Like he was trying to show us his boxing skill.
Oh, I hated it.
I was just like, no. I was like, I'm going to turn this off. This is what you're going to do. Because that's not your style. That's not what got you there, right? And then by the 3rd or the 4th round, he got back to being himself. So it's going to be interesting to see the game plan of Vergil Ortiz. I think he's going to try at the beginning possibly to go wits with Madrimov before he goes to say this is stupid. Vergil Ortiz is emotional, and I think that's a downfall of him, but it's helped him get to this point. And I've always said, man, if he can control his emotion in a fight with his power, his tenacity, and his volume, he's going to have to be able to unleash it in the latter rounds. But he has to control his emotions in the beginning rounds, otherwise he gets clipped like he did against Mean Machine. But then we saw what he did after that against Mean Machine. So Madrimov is extremely skilled, man. I think if he would have let his hands go a little bit more against Bud, it might have been a different story. I think sometimes you go into a fight with these big level name guys and you kind of get a little, I don't want to say like shocked that you're in the ring with them, but you kind of gaze them a little bit. It's like you fight for example, like when you fight a Canelo, you think you're going to do one thing, and then you go into the ring and you realize, holy crap, this is a big stage. This is a big stage for both of these guys. And when Madrimov was on the big stage against Bud, he fought well, but I felt like he had more. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, that's a great point, and that's a big knock that I meant to speak on, is that he didn't let his hands go enough, especially down the stretch. Like, you're the champion, right? Like, this is your biggest moment. You're the bigger guy in such a razor close fight. If you're not letting your hands go in this moment,
you're not going to
win. When are you going to let your hands go? Yeah, that was a big night. That's a big thing with me, especially in the championship rounds. I'll never forget with Loma and Haney when I had it almost, it's dead even, and Loma came out, didn't let his hands go in the 12th, and then said, I took it off. I took the 12th round off. You're the challenger in an undisputed fight. Yeah, so that's a big knock. I can't trust somebody like that's a big knock, and I can't overlook that. Like you're saying with Madrimov, if you didn't let your hands go on the razor, that win would have changed their life over Bud.
And that is why I'm going Vergil Ortiz as well, because I know what I'm going to get from round 1 to 12, because this is a guy who is not going to be afraid to let his hands go. Matter of fact, he's waiting for the right opportunity, and he's never going to stop coming. Now, he might get clipped. I wouldn't be surprised if we see either guy getting dropped, right? But Vergil Ortiz, if he's down on the cards, especially going the championship rounds, he's coming, he's throwing, and he's not letting it go. He's letting hands fly. And he's got that grit and that toughness, man. I think he's another guy as well, too, that's like, in a good way, we're going to keep it in the sport of boxing, who is on that cusp of kind of crazy out there, bro. Like, he's like, he don't care. And I like that mentality. I really like that mentality. And it's because in the championship rounds, when you look back, if he would have threw like 10, 12 more punches against Bud, it might have been different. Ortiz, he's the least he's going to throw is probably 25, 30 punches in the first 2 minutes. What I'm saying? So I got to go with the volume over, from what I've seen from the history of Vergil Ortiz, to get the job done. Now, does he stop him? I don't know. But I think Vergil Ortiz is going to find a way to get it done. But this is a big fight, man, for both of these guys. I'm just looking forward to it, man. But again, another one that we're kind of on the same page. We'll see if we keep these going, man. Let's keep things pushing. Let's talk heavyweights. Let's talk Daniel Dubois versus Joseph Parker, 12 rounds, heavyweight division. Dubois, 22 wins, 2 losses, 21 wins by way of knockout. Parker, 35 wins, 3 losses, 23 wins by way of knockout. These two guys are probably in the past couple of years, like the streakiest uphill climb. Both of these guys, you could say both of them are on a comeback, so to speak, in different ways, different stages in their career. Man, what do you think about this one, bro?
Well, you tell me if you've ever heard this before, because I've been watching boxing since I was a kid. I've been breaking down fights the last 5 years, right? And never since I've been doing this has this ever come across me. A fighter, I'm talking Daniel Dubois, that has been able to increase his durability, his actual chin, his punch resistance. I have never seen this in my life. Not only that, I've never picked a guy. 3 times I've been wrong on Daniel Dubois. It's never happened with any fighter. I pick fights every week. I pick multiple fights every week. This has never happened to me. This is like an anomaly. And I'm thinking, why am I not getting this right? He increased his durability. He changed his durability. I mean, Daniel Dubois is a guy, I give him the pass with the broken eye socket from Joe Joyce. Okay, Joe Joyce was an absolute monster there. Joe Joyce was an absolute monster there. But he gets dropped by Kevin Lorena, a cruiserweight, right? He takes a knee, 3 knees, and then he goes against Usyk, the biggest the fight of his life. This is the thing with Usyk. Usyk has never had a knockout as a heavyweight. 0 knockouts. And before they go on BoxRec and said, well, look, he's got a retirement in his first. It was, I think, Chaz Witherspoon or Eddie Chambers. He was just overweight. He didn't want to get off his stool. He wasn't hurt. Yeah. Usyk has no knockouts. So for Daniel Dubois to take a knee off of a jab from Usyk and pretty much just didn't want to get the count, he quit. I don't care what anybody says. He's quit. I said, this guy's done. His punch was, he can't take a punch anymore.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, he goes to fight Big Baby, Jarrell Miller. I said, Jarrell Miller's got, I don't care. He's 300. He's got 100 pounds on Dubois. He throws relentless punches. He's going to weigh on him. This guy's quit before. He's going to quit again. Not only did he not quit, he went toe-to-toe with Big Baby Miller. Before people say, oh, you're crazy taking Big. Listen, this is the same Big Baby Miller. Exact next fight, I picked him to beat Andy Ruiz. And if you can't tell me you're a boxing fan, watch that fight and say it was a draw. Big Baby beat Andy Ruiz. That's the 100%. Same Big Baby that fought Dubois. He beat Andy Ruiz. So, listen, credit to Daniel Dubois. He beat Big Baby. Not only beat him up and stopped him. Only one to do that. Goes against Hrgovic. Ate about 50 right hands in a row, just bounced them off his face. No head movement. I couldn't believe it. These are the same, like, how does a jab from Usyk, who's never had a knockout, make you take a knee, and you can't beat a count, but you're taking every right hand off of Hrgovic? I'm never, like, it's blowing my mind. And then against AJ, he just becomes this monster against AJ. And AJ clipped him badly in the 5th round, where his legs wobble. And I thought, oh, this is done. AJ got him. AJ hits hard. I don't care what form you think of AJ's in. AJ hits hard, and he's a great finisher. Daniel Dubois got hit again, and then threw a perfect short right hook and
lights out.
Rendered. Yeah. I said, that's a ridiculous momentum, a ridiculous change, because one of his biggest flaws was the head movement and his durability, and it seems to be there. I mean, this guy, I don't know. Like, there's no words to describe it. I just explained everything. I still haven't figured it out. Like, what changed? So you got Joseph Parker, but he's also had good wins, but those wins are more fool's gold to me. And respectfully, like I don't want to say struggle with Jack Massey a couple years ago. Jack Massey, who came up from cruiserweight, but that was the closest boxing match. I didn't think he looked that good. He fought against Zhang, and like we talked about before, he beat Zhang. He got dropped twice, but Zhang didn't let his hands go. That was a very winnable fight for Zhang. I mean, they share a somewhat common opponent. Zhang fought Hrgovic, and that was a very close fight. We saw what Dubois did to Hrgovic, right? So, he went the distance with Zhang. Okay, everyone's applauding. I'm great. Great matchup with Andy Lee, the trainer, with Joseph Parker. They had a great game plan for that. You can only beat who's in front of you. He beat Zhang. Beautiful. And then he goes against Deontay Wilder. Or previous, whatever it was, the chain of events. But Deontay Wilder, he went 12 rounds with Deontay Wilder. I'm going to ask you an honest question. That same Deontay Wilder is in the ring with Daniel Dubois. Is he going 12 rounds?
No, man, and it pains me to say this because everybody that's been rocking with the channel, I'm big on the Bronze Bomber, but Daniel Dubois is stopping Bronze Bomber in under 5 rounds.
That's not going. He's not getting a boxing lesson. I mean, that's not. He was done. Unfortunately, I think something was taken out of him. Those were wars with Tyson Fury for both sides. Tyson Fury, they both you can't have those battles. Share that many blows in the ring with those two big men and be the same after that. Different story for a different day. But what I'm saying is Joseph Parker looked phenomenal. Looked good. I wouldn't even say phenomenal. He looked good with the opponents in front of him. But I think the actual opponents that Dubois beat were not only better, I think the performances were much better. And the youth and the power, the jab, maybe skill for skill, Parker's better. But I said this before. I don't pick the skill. Who's the better skilled fighter in this? Sometimes I pick who's the better fighter. There's a lot more that goes into it than just breaking down the skill. Right? So I think for me, I think Dubois. I like Dubois going into this. I think Dubois, even unconventional, could beat him on points. People always tell me it's either got to be points one guy or not got the other. No, I think Dubois could beat him on points. I think he could outbox him, or I think he could hurt him. So I got to go. I'm going with Dubois on this.
Man, I was the past couple fights. I picked AJ over Dubois. Me and you talked heavily about the Jarrell Miller fight. And I felt like because of what happened against Usyk, I'm like, man, Dubois ain't got no mental strength, man. He gonna fold. When the going gets tough, he gonna go. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the mentality that I was thinking here. Every time in the past couple of fights I picked against Dubois, like he's won, but not just won, but showed you something different. Showed you toughness, showed you grit, showed you strength, showed you power. A different level of confidence that I've never seen in him that I did not know was in there. It's kind of like he transformed into something else, like the old shell of Dubois. And I still don't really want to hear him talk at press conference because he sounds, it sounds very scripted. Like every single time it's like somebody, it's like he has headphones in or somebody's whispering him and saying, yo, say this. And it sounds terrible every single time. But at the same time, man, whatever he's been doing, whatever he's been saying to himself, whatever his team's been doing, it's been working, right? And that is a mental thing. It's like something switched up top for him because Yeah, he doesn't have the greatest defense, right? Yeah, he gets clipped. Yeah, all of those things. But the chin is like, yo, wait, like what's going on here? Like AJ put some shots on him. Joe Joyce put some shots on him, and Joe Joyce is a relentless machine. Joe Joyce got him. But AJ, I still, as you mentioned, punches harder than most of the heavyweights right now. It was the same shot. Both of those guys hit him, but the different reaction. It's like Dubois in his recent fights has been taking shots and hits, but he's like, I'm not going down. So I don't think anything changed physically for me. I think it's just mentally. He just is transformed into this butterfly of a fighter where he actually believes in himself now. I've said it before in previous breakdowns, man. I think Daniel Dubois is, as a coach, as a trainer, this is what you want your heavyweight to look like, right? Like he's a perfect specimen, heavyweight division. He's strong. He's 6'4". He's not too tall, not too big. He's got power, good technique, good, decent footwork. You know, he got a jab, everything you want. But I've always said what separates Dubois from being here with the rest is just the mentality. But TJ, bro, I think he's found it. I think he's found it. Joe Parker, we mentioned again Zhang. I think Zhang should have stopped him. I think he should have stopped him after the 2 knockdowns, but he didn't. Deontay Wilder, he fought a Deontay Wilder that I'm not going to say he was in there for the money, but I'm also not going to say that the money wasn't a motivating factor to be in there because I don't think Deontay, I'm never going to question an athlete's preparation. That's not what I'm saying. But I just think, as you mentioned, those wars, I think Deontay went into that fight thinking that he could depend on a power that he didn't actually throw enough, right? He has the power, but he didn't throw enough for that power to come. And Joseph Parker kind of just had his way. It looks great on paper, but I think both of those fighters were a little less than their best on the night. And Zhang just didn't finish. He played with his food, and the food got away from him.
And you know, Akeem, I think Wilder alluded to the fact that he just couldn't pull the trigger anymore. I think he had mentioned that. And once a fighter mentions that, yes, I mean, that's the first thing that go when you just feel like you can't pull the trigger anymore. So that's the big question mark. Great fight from Parker, but what version of Wilder was in front of him?
It's hard not to go against Dubois in this fight, but I also feel like it could be one of those situations where we go with Dubois and Parker comes out on top.
That would be my luck. Yeah.
So, yeah. I think these guys, the trajectory is going up in different ways. I think they're both comeback fighters of the year in the past couple of years, but somebody's spark has got to be let out. And I'm going to go with the one who has fought the tougher competition in kind of their prime years, right? Like I think AJ still has some good years left in him. So I'm going to go Daniel Dubois, man. I just like the shift in his mentality because he's always been skilled, always been talented, always had the physical attributes, but now he's got the mental component. I've picked against Daniel Dubois for the past 3 fights.
Same as me. Yeah, that never happens. I'm telling you, it never happens.
And so
it bothers me. It bothers me. It really does.
So this fight, I'm actually going to go with him. Now, knowing how boxing is and knowing my luck, your luck, Parker could come out and edge it out. And, he'd be dropped like 3 times and he comes out and gets a stoppage win. Like it could,
yeah,
but
I'll be pissed if that happens.
But I'm going with Dubois. You're going with Dubois. Man, it must be on the verge of being a great card because we've picked the same ones for different reasons so far. But let's go to the main event, man. Artur Beterbiev, man, King Arthur, right, versus Dmitry Bivol, or Bivol, however it's pronounced. The rematch, 12 rounds, 175. Beterbiev, 21 wins, no losses, 20 wins by knockout. The first time he went the distance. Bivol, 23 fights, 1 loss, 12 wins by way of knockout. Before we break this one down, man, you give me your thoughts. I think it's important to mention, from my understanding, Beterbiev was still in the process of recovering from his injury. So he wasn't 100%. He was actually about 85, 80% because he was still in the process of recovering from that, but he didn't want to not take the fight. Opportunity to become undisputed, to make history. So now he's healthy, 100%. What do you think about this fight, man, in the rematch? Does anything change for you?
So let me touch on this because I know people are going to go back and forth on this. The controversy of the scoring, who won, who didn't win. Going to ask me, who did I think win? So I'll tell you like this. Almost every week, I score fights. I break fights down. I score them live. Right? No different with this fight, score live for a couple of reasons, but mainly for impartial scoring. I do because I like to bet certain fights live or cash out. So I have to be impartial because being biased is going to cost me money. So
yeah,
Bivol, Beterbiev, at the 10th round, I had it 5-5. I had it split. For me, the momentum, Bivol was clearly winning some of the early rounds, just outboxing him, making him miss, where it seemed like Beterbiev was really just chasing him, following. But there was a momentum switch. And I felt like the shots, Bivol's feet started slow. He started to hold his ground a little bit more. And Beterbiev's shot started pushing him back, pushing him around. And then it seemed like now Beterbiev was in control. So by the 10th, I had put it out there. I think the momentum switch, Beterbiev needs these two last rounds. It was 10-10. And I ended up giving him the two last rounds. I had it 7-5 Beterbiev. I know a lot of people didn't. People somewhat called it a robbery, maybe Bivol, but live scoring it, I had it Beterbiev 7-5. Now, knowing that he had such a great back half of the fight, let's call this round 13. They know each other now. So Beterbiev going in, if he starts a little bit faster, he doesn't have to play catch up. So what can Bivol do to change it? I mean, you don't want to stand your ground, and you're going to have to maybe make rounds a little more clear. But I could see Beterbiev pushing the pace a little bit more, making those rounds a little more convincing. Maybe he could hurt him, but I haven't seen Bivol. He didn't really get hurt in the first fight. But it's going to be hard to beat the front foot aggression and the power shots of Beterbiev. That's really what I know the age, but if the age was a factor, you would have seen it in round 10, 11, and 12, and I didn't. He came out strong. Like I said, I gave him those rounds. So Beterbiev's been there, and maybe he can have a repeat. Maybe he can make it more convincing. But I'll keep it short and sweet. I like Beterbiev in this. I don't think Bivol's going to flip it around.
Man, this is kind of how I look at age sometimes, right? Like, there are fighters who are 38, 39, and they look rough, right? Like you physically can see the decline. But then there are those who are that age, 35 and up. But if you live the sport of boxing, you can last a little bit longer. I look at Beterbiev, the knock on him. Yeah, he's had some injuries over the years. But in the grand scheme of things, for him being 38, 39, 21 fights is not a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a lot of fights. And the way how he fights is always going to be interesting when it comes to the judging, man. We've seen fights where, fight that comes to mind, Erickson Lubin and Jesus Ramos, right? I thought it was a clear victory for Jesus Ramos, but the judges saw something different. I think from a judging aspect, when we look at it in the recent years, at least from what I've seen, you can let me know what you've seen, they tend to favor the guy who's on the front foot. They tend to favor the aggression. Yeah, you may not be punching as much, but optics matter, I think, right? I think optics matter, especially in these championship rounds. And as a challenger, Bivol is going to have to take the fight to Beterbiev. You're going to have to take the belt from him, but you have to be wary. Right? I've said this in this as well, too. Like, in the first fight, Bivol has to be careful. He's so calculated, so disciplined. It's kind of what makes him such a great fighter. But you have to take a risk against Beterbiev. But even when you take a risk against Beterbiev, you have to be careful because one shot could be the shot that takes you out. So you have to. He's a mean dude. Yeah. You have to come in and be calculated. And you cannot make a mistake from in close. And that's a challenging thing because Beterbiev, we've seen him drop before. We've seen him blood gushing down his eyes. And it sometimes take him, Beterbiev I'm talking about, to go through a level of adversity and opposition before he turns it on, right? Before that switch comes on, he says, oh, wait, this is a fight. Let me go ahead and be more aggressive and let me really get this thing going. And when he gets momentum going, man, it's like a wrecking ball, right? Because it looks like he's not doing much, but he'll touch you, he'll touch you, he'll touch you, he'll touch you. Then boom, you hit the body. And you're like, wait a minute, this guy hasn't been punching me that hard, but he's been touching me. Jab here, jab here, left here, come across here. Yeah, I kind of blocked it. But you saw Bivol's face. Some of those shots he did block, but the ricochet of Beterbiev, his glove hit him in the face, and those shots matter. Those shots add up, So I don't know, man. I think in rematches, as I've said before, like very few times does it actually change. Very few times does the guy who lost come out on the other side. If anybody can do it, I think it's Bivol. I think it's the time right now. And if Beterbiev was truly operating at 85%, and now he's 100%. You got to take that into play as well, too, at least for me. So I forgot who said it. I think it might have been maybe Customato or maybe it was Teddy Atlas, where they say once you become a champion, you're 20% better.
Yeah,
but
I've heard that.
Beterbiev has been a champion for like 8-9 years, and he just consistently a wrecking ball. I've said it before. We've talked about this before, man. As much as we like Bivol,
let me ask you, who did you have winning the first? I never asked you. I don't know. Did you think it was a draw? Did you think?
No, I didn't think it was a draw, man. I thought momentum for me personally was clearly swinging in the favor of Beterbiev. And it's not that Bivol necessarily changed anything, but he wasn't making the rounds definitive enough for me to say, oh, that's a clear Bivol round. I thought the early parts, most definitely some clear Bivol rounds. But there was a round, I think it was the 5th or the 6th or the 7th, somewhere there, where he felt the power of Beterbiev. He got clipped clean, and it made him slightly hesitant. And I think in the championship rounds, he was trying to fight a little bit more on the back foot and kind of just be more of a counterpuncher. But just being a counterpuncher in the championship rounds is not enough to me. At least for me, championship rounds, I'm going to score it for the guy who's going to take the most risks, who's being aggressive, because that's the person that's dictating the pace of the fight. You're playing off me. When I'm going right, you're going left. I'm coming forward, you're going back. Beterbiev did a better job of that in those championship rounds.
And like you mentioned a little earlier, it seems to be a trend now with judging where they're starting to favor effective aggression. So, and like maybe it wasn't so much clean punching from Beterbiev, but he was effective. I thought he was being able to put him in places where he wanted to, and Bivol wasn't able to implement what he wanted to do. For me, that was effective aggression, and his punches definitely thumped. Like you could tell both hands were having an impact. So in a close rounds, I could see judges starting to favor the front foot heavy Beterbiev.
So I'm going with you, man. I think Beterbiev comes out more aggressive, kind of like how he did against Callum Smith and Anthony Yarde. I was very surprised how aggressive he came out against Anthony Yarde, and I like Anthony Yarde. I think Anthony Yarde is a great fight for either of these guys, but I think Beterbiev comes out more aggressive because I think he's probably an extremely nice guy outside of the ring. But I think inside of the ring, I think he's slightly annoyed at the fact that people thought it was close.
Yeah.
Like I think he's annoyed at the fact that now he has 20 wins by knockout and not 21. So I'm not saying he's gonna knock out Bivol, but I think it could be a continuation, just as you mentioned. I like the aggression, the front foot fighter a little bit more than the skill fighter in this because of what I've seen from the judges recently. But even before the first fight, when this fight was announced, I was still an Artur Beterbiev guy, and that's not changing for me. I'm still going Beterbiev. Maybe he goes the distance. I don't know. Maybe he stop it. I don't know. I think AB wins. And if he does this again, I mean, where does he go from here? You know what I'm saying? It's going to be very interesting, man. But again, man, for those watching, again, this is me and TJ, we haven't talked about any of this. So the fact that we kind of agreed on who was going to win for obviously
Kind of
different
agreed. We
reasons.
did agree. I've been talking with some serious boxing people the last 2 weeks, right? I haven't yet come across a person that we have every single, like, we've lined up on every single fight. It seems like you and me have lined up on every, and we have zero talk. We haven't talked
No.
about any of these fights, which is kind of, yeah, no, I mean, it's refreshing knowing that. I sometimes like when someone has a different viewpoint
Absolutely.
and you can go back and forth and debate. It seems like we agree with everything, so it's a good thing. I think it's also a good thing. But I haven't agreed with anybody on every single fight yet in the last 2 weeks with serious boxing people. So
Yeah,
no,
and
it's pretty wild.
And I think like we like agree, but like it's for different reasons. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like it's not the
Yeah.
same exact reason. It's for different reasons in different parts. And for me, it's mainly the small things the internal things that kind of make me go with certain guys. Yeah, everybody is skilled at the elite level, man. We know this. But there's also that added advantage that's not physically seen, and for me, it just
Momentum, yeah, mentality going into it. That's a big thing people don't
that's
weigh.
a real thing. That's a real thing in sports. Look at basketball, right? You can go on a 21-0 streak shooting threes and twos. That makes a massive difference.
How you're feeling, your confidence, whether you're going to shoot that right hook, or not. Like, I mean, there's so much going into it. So, yeah, I mean, that's just one thing on top of the tape and the skill sets. But yeah, no, this is good, man. I hope we're right.
I wouldn't be surprised if Joseph Parker pulls it out, man. It could be that type of one.
Yeah.
But man, always appreciate you taking the time, bro. Again, as I've said it before, man, anytime you want to do this, it's always welcome. For those that are watching, obviously, let us know your thoughts in the comments, man. Let us know if you like the picks, if you have the same picks, or Rakeem, TJ, you guys are talking crazy. Like, stop the nonsense. Whatever it is, let us know in the comments, man. And let us know if this is one of the best cards that you are anticipating. Obviously, we don't know how it's going to play out, but on paper, pound for pound, this is up there. So let us know your thoughts, man. TJ, always love and respect and appreciation, man. And, we'll definitely have you back on another time, bro.
Thanks, Hakeem, man. A pleasure. Thanks.